Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is from Arabian Nights once again, but some of you may remember it. Or you may remember the main person, which is Sinbad the Sailor. The third voyage of Sinbad the Sailor from Arabian Nights. Long ago, a Middle Eastern man called Sinbad went to sea to seek his fortune in strange lands. On his first voyage, he landed on what appeared to be an island, but was an enormous sleeping whale. When the whale dived, Sinbad was washed ashore on another island. Here, he helped to save a king's horse from drowning. The king rewarded Sinbad richly, and he returned to Baghdad wealthy. Soon restless, Sinbad set off on a second voyage. Once accidentally abandoned by his shipmates, he found himself stranded in the Valley of Diamonds. He was lifted out of the valley by a gigantic bird called a roc, and returned to Baghdad with a fortune of gems. Now, after a short while, as I bask in my glory, the pleasant and easy life I led made me quite forget the perils of my two voyages. Moreover, as I was still in the prime of my life, it pleased me better to be up and doing. So once more, providing myself with the rarest and choicest merchandise of Baghdad, I set sail with other merchants of my acquaintance for distant lands. We had touched at many ports and made much profit, when one day upon the open sea we were caught by a terrible wind. Lasting for several days, it finally drove us into harbour on a strange land. I would rather have come to anchor anywhere than here, exclaimed our captain. This island is inhabited by hairy savages who are certain to attack us. Whatever these dwarfs may do, we dare not resist, since they swarm just like the locusts, and if one of them is killed, the rest will fall upon us, and speedily, and I mean speedily, make an end of us, the English captain said. Only too soon we were to find out that the captain spoke truly. There appeared a vast multitude of hideous savages, not more than 2 feet high and covered with reddish fur. Throwing themselves into the waves, they surrounded our vessel, chattering in a language we could not understand, and clutching at ropes and gangways. They swarmed up the ship's side with such speed and agility that they were almost, well, to be honest, it was like they were flying up. You may imagine the rage and terror that seized us as we watched, unable to do anything to stop them. They sailed our vessel to an island which lay a little further off, where they drove us ashore. Then they made off with our ship, leaving us helpless. We wandered miserably indeed, eating various herbs and fruits that we found as we went along. Presently, we saw in the distance what seemed to us to be a splendid palace, towards which we turned our wary steps. But when we reached it, we saw that it was a castle, lofty, strongly built. Pushing back the heavy ebony doors, we entered the courtyard. But upon the threshold of the great hall beyond, It was something, and, well, we paused, frozen with horror. Still now catches my breath when I think back. The sight which greeted us was, well, one side lay a huge pile of bones. Definitely human. Absolutely human. On the other side were numberless spits for roasting. Human. Also human. Overcome with terror, we sank trembling to the ground and lay there in despair. The sun was setting when a loud noise aroused us. The door of the hall was violently burst open, and a horrible giant entered. It was I'd say as tall as a palm tree, and had but just the one eye, which flamed like a burning coal in the middle of his forehead. His teeth were long and sharp, while his lower lip hung down upon his chest. He had ears like elephant's ears, which covered his shoulders, and nails like the claws of some fierce bird. The giant examined us with his fearful eye, then came towards us and grabbed me by the back of my neck, turning me this way and that. Feeling that I was mere skin and bone, he set me down again and went on to the next, whom he treated in the same fashion. At last he came to the captain, and finding him the fattest, he stuck him upon a spit and kindled a huge fire, at which he roasted him. After the giant had supped, he lay down to sleep, snoring like the loudest thunder, while we lay shivering and full of horror. And we stayed like that the whole night. When day broke, he awoke and went out. Then we bemoaned our horrible fate until the hall echoed with our despairing cries. Though we were many, and our enemy was alone, no plan could we devise to escape from the island. So at last, submitting to our fate, we spent the day wandering up and down the island, eating what we could find. When night came, we returned to the castle, having sought in vain for any other place of shelter. At sunset, the giant returned, supped upon maybe one or more, of our unhappy comrades, slept and snored till dawn, and then left us as before. Our condition seemed to us so frightful that several of my companions thought it would be better to leap from the cliffs and perish in the waves at once, rather than await a miserable end such as the others. But at last I had an idea to combat the giant. I told it to my companions, then added, "Plenty of driftwood lies along the shore. Let us make several rafts. If our plot succeeds, we can wait patiently for some passing ship to rescue us. If it fails, we must quickly take our rafts, frail as they are. We have more chance of saving our lives with them than we do if we remain here." All agreed with me, and we spent the day building rafts, each capable of carrying 3 persons. At nightfall we returned to the castle, and very soon the giant came, and one more of our members was sacrificed. But that time, it was our vengeance that was at hand. That's what I would say. As soon as he had finished his horrible repast, he lay down to sleep, as he does all the time. And when we heard him begin to snore, I and 9 of the boldest of my comrades rose softly and took a spit, which we made red hot in the fire. Then, at a given signal, we plunged it into the giant's eye, completely blinding him. Uttering a terrible cry, he sprang to his feet, clutching in all directions to try and seize one of us. But we had all fled different ways as soon as the deed was done, and thrown ourselves flat upon the ground in corners where he was not likely to touch us. After a vain search, he fumbled about till he found the door, and fled out of it, howling ever so frightfully. We too, of course, fled from the castle, and, stationing ourselves behind our rafts, we waited to see what would happen. Alas, morning light showed our enemy approaching us, supported on either hand by two giants nearly as large and fearful as himself, while a crowd of others followed close upon their heels. Hesitating no longer, we clambered upon our rafts and rowed with all our might out to sea. The giants seized up huge pieces of rock and, wading into the water, hurled them after as we were going on our rafts. Now, they had moderate good aim, and all the rafts except one I was upon were swamped, and their luckless crews drowned. Indeed, I and my two companions had all we could do were keep on our raft and hope that we were beyond the reach of the giants. But by dint of hard rowing, we gained the open sea, which gave us the space that was needed. Lucky for us, we were rescued, but the rest had perished, either to the giants or to the sea. Anyway, that's the story of my third adventure. Maybe best you don't tell your children or grandchildren. It's quite a scary one, I have to say. The end. Well, that was the third voyage of Sinbad the Sailor. Definitely cut down into a more bite-sized story, might I add. Interesting that it's told from his perspective, like you are reading it as him. I like that, it's different. Anyway, thank you for listening. Please hit that like button, share if you can, and subscribe if you have not done so, because it does really help. Many blessings.